The Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax collection station. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. And as he sat at dinner in the house, many tax collectors and sinners came and were sitting with Jesus and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when he heard this, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." While he was saying these things to them, suddenly a leader came in and knelt before him, saying, "My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live." And Jesus got up and followed him with his disciples. Then suddenly a woman who had been suffering from a flow of blood for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak. For she was saying to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be made well." Jesus turned and seeing her said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." And the woman was made well from that moment. When Jesus came to the leader's house and saw the flute players in the crowd making a commotion, he said, "Go away, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But when the crowd had been put aside, he went in and took her hand, and the girl got up. And the report of this spread through all of that district. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
There's a lot of elements in today's readings, and a lot of different things that could be talked about. I'm not going to talk about all of them because that's a lot of words. I do have one message that I want to give you. And the gospel today tells us that Jesus saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax station. And taxation was important to the Roman Empire, and the Romans occupied Judea at this time. The tax collectors were called publicani. They were Jewish locals who were hired by Rome to collect taxes from their own people. Tax collectors were despised. And there were reasons for this. First, these were the face of the collection of taxes. And no one really gets excited about paying taxes. And the tax collector was the person that you related all that negative energy to. So it was just a person that was in a bad role. You can probably think of some roles that exist in modern society that get the same kind of stigma. Perhaps used car salesman, something like that. In any case, it's easy to connect the collector to that negative energy. Second, Rome gave tax collectors quotas on the amount of tax they needed to collect. And oftentimes, in some texts, the collector would over-collect the tax and keep the difference for themselves. The tax collectors had a better life than those from whom they were collecting the tax, and that's also very negative. Third, these collectors were a constant reminder that Israel was not free. The tax collected was used to fund the pagan rule that came from Rome. So you're giving your money to something that doesn't help you out. So again, a lot of negativity around this person, these people, these tax collectors. The Jewish community scorned the tax collectors. These collectors took a job with the Roman Empire, were no longer really part of the Jewish community. Everyone saw the tax collector as a traitor, a sinner, and someone that was unclean. And cleanliness was very important to the Jewish faith. Jesus, however, sees a person worth calling, and that's important. Jesus doesn't see a category. He doesn't see a stereotype. He doesn't see a scandal. He sees a man sitting at a tax station. And he says simply, "Follow me." This is the heart of the gospel. Jesus calls people the world pushes aside. Jesus welcomes people others avoid. Jesus sees dignity where society sees disgrace. This is why the Pharisees are scandalized. Jesus is eating with the tax collectors and sinners, the very people religious society has written off. And Jesus responds with one of the most beautiful lines in Scripture. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. In other words, God's heart is not in gatekeeping. God's heart is in grace. Looking deeper into this situation might help us better understand the social gravity of Jesus' activity in this passage. Because tax collectors worked with Gentiles, handled Roman currency, and interacted with all kinds of people, they were considered religiously impure in Jewish society. They were barred from synagogue leadership, giving testimony in court, and holding any social respectability. They were lumped together with prostitutes, criminals, and the unclean. This is why the Pharisees asked Jesus' disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? To them, Jesus wasn't just being friendly, he was violating purity boundaries. For the Jews, tax collectors symbolized everything that was wrong with the world. If you asked a first century Jew to list the most hated people in society, tax collectors would be near the top. They represented economic injustice, political oppression, religious impurity, and social betrayal. They were the ultimate outsiders, which is exactly why Jesus' actions are so shocking to them. But Jesus does not just forgive Matthew, he chooses him. He doesn't say, clean up your life first. He says, follow me. This is grace in its purest form. Here is another element from Jesus eating with the tax collectors and sinners. In the ancient world, table fellowship meant acceptance, friendship, and solidarity. It wasn't just nourishment. It was a gathering of people. Jesus is not embarrassed to be seen with them. He's not worried about guilt by association. He is showing the world what God's heart looks like. Jesus redefines holiness with this action. The Pharisees believed holiness meant separation. Jesus shows that holiness means mercy. He states that in today's gospel, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Holiness is not about avoiding the unclean. Holiness is about bringing healing to the broken. Jesus consistently sees the people overlooked by others, welcomes those excluded by others, sits with those shamed by others, and restores dignity to those society has pushed away. Tax collectors were untouchables in Jesus' world. Jesus made them friends, followers, and dinner companions. So the message is, where society draws lines, Jesus crosses them. Where religion builds walls, Jesus builds tables. Where people say, not them, Jesus says, follow me. That is the gospel. We are assured in our faith that each of us, on our own specific and unique faith journey, is embraced by God's grace. That grace has no boundaries.